Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Deal, where we discuss business, entrepreneurship, and commercial real estate. My name is Lacey Labs, and I'm here with my co-host, Laura Martin. In today's episode, we interviewed Tyler Davis, president of SVN Saunders Ralston Dantzler Real Estate in Central Florida. Tyler began his career in public accounting and entered the commercial real estate business in 2019. Over the past 5 years, Tyler has learned the ropes of commercial real estate with expertise in all kinds of land deals. Tyler is now the company's president, which continues to experience much growth. Tune into this episode to hear more about Tyler's journey, the commercial real estate and finance experience that he shares, and what advice he would give to younger agents and owners looking to grow their businesses. Tyler Davis, welcome to Beyond the Deal. It's great to have you with us today.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent. Let's go ahead and just get started by you telling us a little bit about your story and your background and how you kind of got into commercial real estate.
Yeah, sure. So I, like many people, have some twists and turns along the way. It wasn't necessarily very knowledgeable about the real estate industry growing up. Grew up in between Birmingham and Atlanta, around on the Georgia-Alabama line. And dad was a pastor for 30 years. Mom was a school teacher, kind of in a small town. So, my view of real estate was, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that sold in our neighborhood. And I never really thought anything more of real estate than that, especially not from a land or commercial perspective. Then wound up going to school at Stanford University in Birmingham, majored in accounting, then got my master's in tax accounting from Alabama, moved back to Birmingham, worked in public accounting for 5 or 6 years at PwC and in the tax space on insurance companies. And then met my wife, who's from Lakeland, and we decided to move closer to her family here in Central Florida. And so that's kind of how I got into the real estate business. So again, nothing really led up to it other than several conversations with Dean Saunders and other folks here at our firm prior to that. But I would probably be very surprised if I went back and told myself in high school or in college that I would be working for a land and commercial real estate firm in Central Florida. But it's funny. We make plans and God laughs sometimes, and I certainly feel like that's how my career has kind of made some pivots along the way, and it's been a fun ride.
How have you been back, or how long have you been to Lakeland? How have you guys been back there?
Here probably 5.5 years. I think in this next summer will be 6 years. We moved in the summer of 2019, which is a wonderful time to move to a brand new city where you don't really know anybody. And then you're there for about 6 months, kind of feel like you got your feet under you and starting to meet some people. And, then everybody goes into hiding for a year or so with COVID. So it was certainly a interesting time to relocate, but thankful we did. It's been a wonderful 5 and 6 years, and our firm has grown a lot. It's been a fun place to work. We can get it kind of into what we do a little bit and our culture, but it's very entrepreneurial, which I love compared to, working at a big corporate shop like PwC. There's certain things that you learn while you're working there, like organizational structure, how a big firm operates, the processes in place, things like that. But it's very much, this is what you do. You're within this small team, and you don't really think outside of that team as much. And here in our business and where we're located, it's we're able to pivot, to be entrepreneurial. Like I said, if we see an opportunity, we're quick to jump all over it. So that part has been very fun. I didn't know I really had somewhat of an entrepreneurial spirit to me until I started here. And there was certainly a transition period going from working at a big firm to a small independent real estate brokerage. And that's probably consistent with other people within the commercial real estate industry who work at a CVP and then go work at a smaller shop. That transition can take a little bit of time, but once you get used to it, I think there's a little bit more hunger and drive, I think, that you get from working at a smaller firm.
So when you moved to Lakeland, did you go right into working at Saunders?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
And it was kind of funny because I didn't know anything about commercial real estate or land at that point, or really much about Florida. I knew Disney World and Panama City, which is probably similar to most kids who grew up in the South. When you go to Florida, it's either the Panhandle, the beaches, or it's to Disney World, basically, or Universal. So I didn't know much else about the state of Florida, let alone the real estate industry or the land industry. And so when I started, we had and still do. It's grown a lot over the years, which has been great, and not any of my own doing. But I started out in commercial property management. We had probably 7 or 8 properties, commercial strip centers, things like that we were managing. And just needed somebody to kind of get their arms around everything, get it organized, stabilize it, and then kick it off. And so that was really what we did for the first 6 months or a year. And implemented a few new software systems, things like that. It was really a good place to learn kind of the X's and O's of the industry, because you're talking to tenants, you're doing some leasing, you're understanding, the core, the financial side of business and how properties perform and how you can improve them over time. And so I felt like that was a really good entry point for me to get into the industry, even though I had an accounting background and a tax background. The lingo is very different. You could be talking about one thing in accounting and it'd be the same thing in commercial real estate, and it's just called something totally different. And so that took a little bit of time just to understand how my background can translate. And then obviously on the tax side of it, there's certain things there that do translate when it comes to exchanges, when it comes to depreciation, capital gains, things like that. So it's really been a fun ride. I feel like that's kind of where we started, and it's not ultimately kind of where I've wound up, but it was really a entry level job, kind of get in at the ground level of what we do, help kind of stabilize it, and then I pass it off to Lauren Smith, Gary Ralston's daughter, who's really crushed it and grown that division and kind of taken it and run with it. So, but it was a great entry point for me to get into the business.
When you got there, I mean, since then you've added different states to your company.
We have, yeah. So historically, we were founded probably almost 30 years ago here in Central Florida, and Dean Saunders has a little bit of a political background, worked for Governor of Florida, U.S. Senator, and then was in the state legislature himself. And so his background is in land. He was ag policy kind of focused in those roles. And so when he started the business, it was to service landowners, and we still do a lot of that in Florida. It's still the vast majority of what we do. But we, given the state's growth, given the transition of land, and kind of the decline of the citrus industry, especially here in Central Florida, a lot of those landowners, what used to be 100 acres of citrus is now 100 acres on Highway 27 with 70,000 cars a day. That's mixed use development projects and PUD projects, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that from a development standpoint. And so we've grown a lot as a firm to help service those landowners with whatever their real estate needs are and whatever it is that they own. And that's changed over the years. And, a lot of the clients here in Florida, these large landowners, have plenty of land. And so whether we're doing conservation easement for them or they're selling a piece of land, we work hand in hand with our commercial division to help them do 1031 exchanges into cash flowing commercial assets. Dean calls it mailbox money. Sometimes if you're buying a new triple net asset that, for a lot of these large landowners and farmers, they can use that money to offset some of the ag operations, and to just diversify their portfolios. So we've grown, and now we have a commercial division kind of along the I-4 corridor, Tampa, Lakeland, Orlando. We're located right in the middle of that. And then when I joined about 5 or 6 years ago, we kind of just dipped our toe in the water in Georgia. So kind of the head of our Georgia operations grew up here in Lakeland. He and his wife, he went to school at Georgia Southern. They wound up deciding to kind of live and plant a flag in Thomasville, Georgia. And so we've really built the team out around him. But in those 5 or 6 years, that team's grown. It's been fun to watch as well and kind of be a little bit of a part of. Although, they deserve all the credit for the growth of that team. But from there, we kind of said, all right, we've got a little bit of a blueprint here in Florida with how we do land. It's a little bit different than other firms, and it's somewhat of a fragmented industry, to be honest. And so we saw an opportunity in Georgia, kind of used some of the things that have worked there, some of the things that haven't, and said, well, let's build around the people that are wanting to help us grow. And so we opened an office in Northwest Arkansas this past year, kind of have the right person to grow a team there. And the land characteristics in that state, in that area, are very similar to Central Florida: high transition land, transitional land up in Northwest corner, but then ag in the rest of the state, and big ag. So it kind of fits our situation, but we also are licensed in Alabama. We are also going to expand into some other southern states here soon. So there's more details coming on that probably in the first quarter of this next year. But trying to build with good people, I think that's been at the core of what we've done. It's not been we have to go here, we have to go there. It's let's go where we have the right people and build around the right people. And I think in the business that we're in, which is really the people business, it all starts with that.
Well, and you're up over like 100 people now, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah, so we have probably, I can't remember the exact number, but well over 100 advisors, although we've probably paid 90 to 95 of them this year. We have some people who are part-time real estate advisors, maybe they're, especially in the land sector, where that maybe they're land manager or they're forestry consultant or they sell crop insurance. They have something else that is kind of their full-time gig. And this is just another tool in their tool belt. And they're already talking to these landowners. They're already doing, these people already trust them with their properties just in a different context. And so for a lot of those guys, we've had a lot of success with, and they've had a lot of success with getting them licensed, kind of getting them into our system. And I think that's one of our ways that we want to grow in some of these other states. We can teach people the real estate side of it. I think that's actually the easier part to teach. It's the character, it's the relationships with the landowners, it's kind of people and their drive and their sales type personalities that you can't really teach. So, our goal is to get people who are already kind of ingrained in that process and ingrained in discussions with landowners kind of in our system.
Well, and I was surprised too. I have a house in Vero, but just how much land you guys do in Florida. But I think it was my daughter Aubrey, who well, was saying how the coast is where all the people are, but in between it is just a ton of land. You don't think about that unless you drive across the state.
Big of an ag industry there is in Florida. It's the second biggest industry in the state behind tourism.
Wow.
And it is a huge state. I mean, it's, through the state that kind of makes a spine, and the center part of the state is where, like you said, the vast majority of ag is. And obviously the state's also in growth mode. And so, a lot of the land that used to be in ag is now residential developments and things like that. But the state's also been pretty good, especially this administration, of allocating significant dollars to conservation efforts to preserve certain corridors, to preserve certain important properties in Florida to ensure that the state will continue to be a strong ag state. And so because of the climate, because of the weather, because of the soil and water here in Florida, it makes for a great kind of climate and environment for ag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how does your accounting and finance background kind of work for you in this role? Because you said you came into this not really knowing commercial real estate. Obviously, you've been in it 5 years. You probably know a lot more now than you did when you started. But you still have had a pretty big role in the financial side of the company. I think you had the title of CFO for a while. Correct.
Yeah, it's been very helpful. I mean, I feel like I've learned this industry a lot faster because of my background. A lot of the concepts and theory translates. The terminology is different, as I mentioned, but it's expedited a lot of my knowledge, and I think also allows me to grasp other aspects of a transaction that I wouldn't otherwise grasp, if that makes sense. Feel like I can have in-depth conversations with clients and their CPAs about what their tax basis is, how this sale will affect, if they're selling one piece of a property or doing an easement on one piece, how that affects the remaining basis, how the family's estate tax plan and estate planning factors into their real estate holdings. So I just feel like it's allowed me to have a bigger picture grasp of a situation or a client situation than I would if I was just thinking about solely the real estate asset. And I think it's helped me guide clients and provide thoughts that have a greater impact maybe than just a singular asset. And I think that's where us as a firm, we've always tried to do what's best by the client first. If enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And so we want to be a trusted family advisor who just happens to know a lot about real estate. And that's, I think my background has allowed me to understand that more. And I've told kids who intern with us or friends of our company, and their kids, like, if you want to go into real estate, get an accounting degree or get a finance degree. You can always learn the real estate piece of it, and there's several ways you can do that. But understanding the numbers, understanding debt, understanding some of these other issues kind of, I think, can help separate you a little bit. And it's really helped to, on the property management side, as I mentioned already, we've bought and sold a few properties. We bought a couple commercial properties. So that background's also helped from an underwriting standpoint as well when I kind of put that add on at certain points.
Yeah. So you actually do a good bit of like sort of outward facing work for this company. Like you're not just internally doing Saunders' financial positioning and stuff. You're doing external kind of oriented stuff with clients, right? That's what I'm hearing.
Correct. Yeah. So I wear several hats. I try to not be a jack of all trades though, and master of none. I gotta be really good at a couple of things, but that's part of the appeal of working at a small company. And Dean Saunders, our owner, has been great about giving me the freedom to do what I think is best in a given day to help the company. And that can look like a lot of different things. I mean, I think when I started working in this role I'm in now a few months ago, I kind of asked him, Dean, what do you want me to do in this role? Like, what's your view of it? What's your goals of it? And he said, help us grow and make more money. So that's my guiding light. And there's not a ton of boundaries in terms of what our firm can do, what we can do, what our employees and agents can do. And that's one of the things I love. Sometimes I wish we had a little bit more structure and a little bit more direction, but there's good and bad with both. And I do like you said, being outward facing, but also inward facing, right? I mean, outward facing, I view that also as being engaging with our advisors, helping support them, encourage them. Even though they're internal, it's still from a company perspective, a company leadership perspective. It's getting out of the office and meeting with those people. It's getting out of the office and helping them on proposals or going to proposals with them. It's, those kind of things that I want our advisors, not just our clients, but our advisors to know that we really care about them. We want to see them succeed, and we want to be a part of helping them grow their business.
Sounds like a great asset. I would imagine as an agent that they enjoy the ability to just call you up and say, hey, can you advise me on this part of this deal? Or can you help me talk to this client about how this is going to impact their cash flow or sort of what's their ROI timeline?
Yeah. And I think that's where we want to get to with it is, especially our young agents who are new to the business. They have so much to learn. You remember when you first kind of started in the business, you feel like there's a lot of pressure. You feel like there's this hurdle you have to get over in terms of getting business, retaining business, and it's a continual kind of climb. And so I'm trying to really encourage them to stay positive, encourage them that they can do this, and also help be a part of it, whether it's, I've told them, if you do a proposal for somebody and you want me to send them a handwritten letter and say, Bill has all the support of our organization from the top down. Your property's important. We're going to do everything we can to support him in facilitating this transaction. Those kind of things. I want to get to that point where it's really a team effort for us as leadership of the firm in supporting, encouraging, developing our agents.
Yeah. So you recently made a transition to the role of president, correct?
That's correct.
So what does that kind of look like? How is your day different? What is that? Has it changed anything, or is it kind of similar?
I would say it's one. I'm thinking more about bigger picture stuff, which for me is a little bit of a transition. I've always been, given my number background, accounting background, I've always liked to be in the weeds on things. I've always liked to not micromanage, but I've liked to know exactly what's going on everything that we do and have a part in that. And so I think some of this is a transition of me delegating more of those duties. It's me thinking about, trying to be a step ahead, trying to be 1 to 2 years ahead on where do we want to be in 2 or 3 years, and what do I need to be doing now to get us there, while also balancing the day-to-day and the managing part of it. And this time of year, and for several reasons, it's been a lot more of kind of the sense of the urgency, getting things done, helping our firm on several fronts with some deadlines we have. But as the calendar turns over to next year, I'm going to start spending more time kind of thinking long term, thinking about growth. And that's not just, again, it's not just numbers of people. That's not just other states. It's how do we grow internally with the current people we have? How do we make them more productive? How do we make them take those next steps? So, I think when you say growth, sometimes people just think, okay, you're getting bigger from a size standpoint, but the easiest way to grow is with the people you already have and making them more productive.
Yeah.
And if you do that the right way, then people see that in the market and see what you're doing. And naturally, the growth in numbers, the growth in geography comes with it.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So you've been in it for only 6 months, but so far, what in this new role of president, what do you really like about it? And what are some of the challenges that you see in taking on this new role?
I really like that I've gotten to know our advisors a lot more, like on a personal level, which I really like. Um, in prior roles and with my skill set in the past, like I said, it's been very much I'm in the office, very much kind of managing the day to day, and a lot of that being staff process, internal focused. And now I've really had a chance to spend time with our client or with our advisors, getting to know them on a personal level. I really like that part of it, and I want to be kind of you think about like a basketball team. They always have the superstar players like Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman, but you also kind of have to have a glue guy, as they call him, the guy that is the connector, the guy that kind of keeps it all together, who's the glue of the team, right? And that could be like Ron Harper or Horace Grant or somebody on those 90s Bulls teams. So I kind of want to be the glue guy, if that makes sense. Like let our brokers be the superstars, let our top agents be the superstars, let our top staff be the superstars, and just kind of be the guy that connects everything together, connects everybody together, who can do a little bit of everything and keep this ship sailing in the right direction. So, and then I think the other part that you mentioned of that question was the challenges. So I think just one of the challenges is our owners are anywhere from 64, 65 to 73 or 74. And so that's really a good thing in that we have years left. They're not going to stop working. There's probably a 10-year window to transition kind of a lot of what we do to kind of the next wave of people. And just as a firm, we don't have a lot of agents who are in their 40s or 50s even. We have a lot of people who are 60 and older, and then a lot of people who are 40 and younger, which is an interesting situation. And that obviously wasn't intentional or anything. It's just kind of how things have shaken out just based on when Dean started the company, when it got up and going, and then kind of recruiting people who are around my age and younger. And so I think there's a great opportunity for people in our firm to work hand in hand with a lot of these senior advisors and seniors in leadership to transition their business and create somewhat of an annuitous situation for them. So we have several agents, let's say, who are kind of starting to get to the point where they're about ready to kind of semi-retire. They still want to be involved. They just don't want to do the day-to-day grunt work. They don't want to drive 3 hours one way and back to go show a piece of land, right? But they have the relationship with the landowner or the buyer. And so I think one of the challenges is that the age of a lot of our high producers is getting older. But one of the opportunities is I think that also opens the door to pairing them up with younger advisors who are hungry, who want to go hustle, want to bring more technology tools to the table. And so one of the things we're looking at is an improved mentor-mentee program for some of our advisors who are starting to hit that age where they still want to work. They just don't want to hustle. They want to spend more time with their grandkids. They want to spend more time in the woods. They want to spend more time on the golf course or fishing. And so how do we pair them up with the right younger advisor who can help transition their book of business, but also, learn from them, but do a lot of kind of the day-to-day hustle and not grunt work. I don't want to use that phrase, but you know what I'm saying? Going to do all the stuff that you don't want to do when you're 65 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you guys recruit agents? I mean, how are you finding these younger people that you're bringing in?
So I would say kind of two different ways. The commercial side of our business, we have to be a little bit more intentional about it. We have to be a little bit more aggressive about it. A lot of the younger people that we've recruited, we've had intern here in the past. So we've had a pretty good internship program, 6 or 7 interns each summer. And We've had a couple of those in Orlando from UCF. We've had several here in Lakeland from various universities, kind of around the country, kids who grew up here or their parents or whatever. And so we tried to create that role to kind of get people's foot in the door. And then from there, on the land and commercial side, I would say this is more important on the land side of things. We do a lot of market research reports that we mail out to 30 or 40,000 landowners a year, a market report, and in each state we're in, which nobody else is doing to that level at least. And so we've got, I think, 6 researchers right now who are full-time researchers on our team. Well, 4 that are full-time, 2 that are part-time, but we've created these somewhat transitional roles because one, it helps us on our market research, our market reports, helps us become the trusted land leader in these markets, but it also gives young kids out of college who want to go be a land broker or a commercial broker a way to pay some bills the first few years. And those roles have been somewhat temporary in nature. So I would say anywhere from a year and a half to 3-year type roles where somebody can come in when they're 22. During the day, they're working on researching, they're working on verifying these sales, kind of putting together these reports, helping with conferences, all that. And then at night, they're up here databasing or they're at home databasing whatever, asset they want to focus on from a brokerage standpoint. So that transition is, again, typically a couple of years. But through the research, they become very knowledgeable on the land market and the commercial market. They understand what things are trading for, who the players are, who's doing what across various different types of land or commercial properties. And so, through that, when they do become a broker, when they do become an agent, they know what they're talking about. So we know when we're sending these young kids out into the market that they're knowledgeable. And honestly, they're more knowledgeable about values than 95% of the land brokers in the industry. And I'm using land as an example, but I would put one of our land researchers who, young guy, he got his master's from UF, degree in real estate, wanted to get into what we do. And he grew up in ag, which is a unique thing. And so he's kind of leading our team there. And I would put his market knowledge about average land values, what's trading for what in the state of Florida up against almost any broker probably in the state of Florida. And that's how in-depth they are in terms of what they do. So, I think the key is you want to get younger in this business, and it's hard to do. Nobody's really figured it out, especially the land side. It's kind of an older generation demographic. You've got to find ways for them to not just go be a broker day one because it's hard.
Yeah. So do most of them take that job as researcher knowing that they want to become an agent and that's the path?
Yeah, that's typically the case. At least in the past, that's been most of it because, we have a couple other verticals. We have a commercial property management division, as I mentioned. We have a land management division as well. We manage 30,000 acres here in Florida. We want to grow that. Want to get us into some other real estate businesses that are kind of underneath an umbrella company, kind of affiliated companies, whether that's appraisals, whether that's more consulting, whether that's land acquisition entitlement, that sort of thing. Long term, I see those research roles as somewhat transitional, but it doesn't always have to transition into brokerage is where I want to get to. We're getting really good talent in our door. We need to find a way, not everybody's going to be a broker. And that's just the way it is. And y'all know that as well as anybody. It takes a certain person, a certain type of personality. That's not to say that a lot of the people we're bringing in aren't super smart at real estate. Their market knowledge is, like I said, very impressive. I put up against anybody. And so how else can they help the firm if they don't want to go be an agent, or if we don't think they're perfect to be an agent? We don't have to push everybody into brokerage. And so I think the goal is, as we build out this company and kind of group of companies, that we use a little bit of a feeder system with the research roles, and then that can feed into various different things depending on what they're good at, what they feel confident in, and that sort of thing.
We recently had Augie Schmidt on as a guest on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So some of our listeners will know that name. And I think he did that exact thing, right? He was a research.
He is our shining star on that front. One of them. He started out in commercial research. I mean, he probably shared his story. He didn't have the ability to go be an agent day one, right? He had kids, a wife, he had things he had to do and take care of. And so, he hustled and worked so hard for several years. And when I first started at the firm, he was still researching.
Wow.
And kind of making that transition into brokerage. And so I think he's kind of proof of concept. And we have several people on the land side too who are that way. But um, it is a great way to get people in the system. And without that, he would not be in the commercial real estate arena, to the level that he is, at least now. And I think he'd be the first person to say it, but he's one of my great friends, and we've bought some properties together. Our families hang out together. We just booked a trip for this spring together. So it is fun, that we have this good group of younger people at our firm that are very tight knit. We all hang out outside of work, but we're all kind of invested in this together and helping grow this business together, which is fun.
Yeah, that's great. So what are you excited about for the future of your company?
I think we've kind of just scratched the surface a little bit on what we do and how we do it. Like I said, the land business is very fragmented. So I'll kind of talk land first. Geographic growth. There's not a lot of kind of one-off land brokers that are very local to their markets, which you have to have. You have to have people that are local to the markets that farmers trust, landowners trust. But you also have to have kind of corporate firepower and office support and marketing support to be able to do more than just sell the 5-acre hunting piece of land, right? So we kind of want to thread that needle of being local and relational and good old boy enough, but also being white collar enough when we need to be to land some of these institutional level deals. And that's kind of the type of company we've been within the land space in Florida. And I think there's an opportunity for us to be that in other markets and other states. And then on the commercial front, we're located in a major city here in Central Florida. At least now it's a major city. Publix is headquartered in Lakeland. Polk County, where we're located, is the fastest growing county and the fastest growing state in the country. And so we're right in the thick of it. It is, you turn any direction, you're going to see a crane or earthwork being done. It's good for business, bad for quality of life, as I say. But there's good things that come with it too. But so we have an office in Orlando, we have an office in Lakeland. We want to open an office in Tampa as well in the near future. And so being able to be in this corridor that's not going to stop growing. We're seeing it from all over, people moving here from other states, as y'all know. We're starting to see inward migration to where we are because the cost of living is a little bit less. So people moving from Miami to Central Florida, people moving from Orlando and Tampa to Lakeland, because with COVID and remote work or not having to be in the office every single day, people are realizing, well, it's, for me to get from my door in Lakeland to downtown Tampa is 40 minutes or 45 minutes. And I can get 2 or 3 times the size house in Lakeland. It's a no-brainer for a lot of people. And same thing for Orlando. And people live in Lakeland, and one spouse works in Tampa, one spouse works in Orlando. So I think we are well located to be the go-to commercial firm. We're never going to compete with CBREs of the world in the commercial space. We're just not. But we don't have to be a really good service provider, to be local, to do things at a very, very, very high level. And I think that's the precedent that we've set as a firm. And I think we can really grow that side of the business here because there's so much growth happening, and we want to be a big part of that on various fronts.
So what percentage of your business do you think is the land versus the commercial?
I would say 75 to 80% land, probably 20% commercial.
So a lot of opportunity.
Some of that depends on how you categorize certain transitional land pieces. I think if we've had this debate internally, but they're selling 100 acres to D.R. Horton, to me, that's land. That's not really commercial. But if you're selling a 2-acre site to Wawa on a hard corner, that's probably commercial. So that debate of what's what. But I think they both help each other, right? I think we get certain commercial development land deals because we're known, Central Florida people know us for our land side of the business too. But then also I think we get commercial landowners or commercial property owners who own a bunch of land that know us from the commercial space. They say, they do a lot of land, so let's use these guys for this land piece too. So I think they both help feed each other and feed the machine. And so it's a good relationship. And again, there's several times where our goal is to service a property owner with whatever it is they own. And if they're a landowner, we want to help them with land, but we also want to help them with their commercial assets and vice versa.
Yeah, but a lot of opportunity in the commercial side too.
There is 100%. And again, we're located right in the middle of the state, so we can go. One of the great things about Lakeland is we're an hour to downtown Orlando, we're 40 minutes to Tampa, but we're 3.5 to 4 hours to Miami, we're 3 hours to Jacksonville. The Panhandle takes a little bit further, but all this stuff in Central Florida is you can go there and back in a day pretty much if you have to. So we can really service almost all the state from where we're at, and kind of keep things centralized, but also have some satellite offices as well. So I think we're well positioned on several fronts to capitalize on the growth that's happening here. We just got to do it. So there's some footing here, but we're excited about where we're headed.
Yeah, future is bright. Yeah.
Very sunny down here too.
And warm.
Literally.
And warm.
And warm. Yeah. And warm.
A lot warmer than here.
For sure. So with your years of experience in the business now, 5.5-ish, what piece of advice would you give or do you give to new agents who are getting started in CRE?
I try to tell them to not compare themselves to other people. I think that's really hard in this business, especially at a firm like ours, where you see certain people selling big properties. I think it's the whole, there's always somebody with a bigger boat kind of comparison is the thief of all joy a little bit. And I really tell our young people to stay in their process, find what works for them from a databasing standpoint, from building a relationship standpoint. There's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all approach to this. People have to find what works best for their personality, for their organizational skills in terms of how they do things. But whatever that process is, trust the process, stay to it, stick to it. Don't look at the scoreboard. Don't look at your production numbers. It's easy to get bogged down, and it's easy to think I can always be doing more. But if you do what we're telling you to do, if you trust the process, if you work hard, do the and then some, do enough, but then some, a little bit more on top. Outwork people, work hard. Don't compare yourself to other people. Don't compare your production to other people. And if you trust what you're doing, I think the results sometimes take care of themselves. It's easier said than done, but again, that's kind of what I try to preach to them, especially the younger people, is feel like there's a direct correlation between how hard you work and sometimes what your production is. The old saying, the harder I work, the more luck we seem to have. So I think that's true in this business too. There tends to be a correlation between input and output if you're doing the right stuff. And so, most of the time that works, not every time. And sometimes there's hard conversations, but try to stay positive with young people because it is hard. It's a tough industry. It feels easy. Everybody would do it and everybody'd make a killing doing it because it's a great career to get into if you can, but it's hard to kind of get over some of those first few hurdles.
Yeah.
And it took me 2 or 3 years until I felt confident, right? Like it was, I was doing a lot of different things, but I was trying to do some brokerage, and it took 2 or 3 years until I felt very confident in my market knowledge that I can do this, and serve clients and have very informed discussions with them. But it's hard. Mm-hmm. It's a hard business to get into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So we have a closing question that I'd love to ask you, and it is, if you could go back and start your career over with all of the knowledge and experience that you have staying with you, what would you do differently?
I think I would have, granted, hindsight's 20/20 for me because I did not intend really coming out of college to go into this business. And even my first few years in accounting, I thought I was going to stay in accounting the rest of my career, kind of work my way up that ladder. But I would probably say get a more diverse experiences from an internship standpoint when you're in college is probably one thing I would have done. I think I would have been in a position to work, to be able to get some good internships in the real estate sector or just in different sectors, like outside of just accounting. I majored in accounting, so I just got accounting internships, but I really wish I would have kind of broadened my perspective a little bit more. I might would have found this more interesting or more attractive than just kind of the traditional accounting path. Mm-hmm. But I also probably would have gotten into this early. Like I think for people, if you are wanting to go be an agent or an advisor, the best time to do that's right out of college because you have low overhead. It sucks for a few years. Your friends are making more money than you are because they're working 8 to 5 jobs, but that's the time to do it, or at least to kind of get the ball going on doing it because you don't have the responsibilities typically of wife, kids, mortgage, all those kind of things. And it makes it easier. So I think I probably would have, in hindsight, knowing that where I would be now, I probably would have gotten into this business earlier, or at least kind of taken a little bit of a different approach when I was, in high school and college, to kind of getting different perspectives and different experiences.
Yeah. Great.
Well, I wanted to just close on a personal note too, as a thank you to you, because my daughter Aubrey interned in your office, and I had met your mother-in-law at a conference when you were pregnant with your 2-year-old, and you guys have just taken her in and just cared so well for her through hurricanes and sickness and everything else. And
we love her. I feel like I'm not quite a parent to her, but I'm kind of like an older brother, I guess. I have a sister who's her age too, so that's kind of fun.
Very grateful.
And she's been a wonderful help to our family, and we've enjoyed having her in our office. And she's been an excellent intern. And then she's also, like she mentioned, work with my wife and her business.
Well, you've been so welcoming.
It's been great. So it's been a fun friendship.
Yeah,
not just with her, but with you and your whole team.
Thank you. You guys have been amazing. And I saw your little MC, who is 2, which is, I realized when talking to you over the weekend that when I was down for her college graduation, that's the age I started my business. I can't even believe that. I just feel like I have
Aubrey
blinked.
was 2. Yeah.
But
it goes by fast, doesn't it?
MC was at church in a Roll Tide sweater.
So we did not take our daughter to church on Sunday. Caroline went with y'all, and I stayed home. But then I had I'm going to get roasted for saying this, but I had a golf match Sunday afternoon, and so I had to drop our daughter off at church with Caroline right when it was over to go out there. I did watch church on my phone and on TV before I left, but I didn't realize Caroline was going to take her into the church, so I just threw on this Roll Tide.
Actually, it's a beautiful sweater. My wife's a Florida fan,
so when I dress her, I have to do. That's my window of opportunity to get her in Alabama stuff. But that's what she wanted to wear, so maybe I'm doing something right.
She's awesome. And a plug for your wife's store, where my daughter has worked, but got this there, 828 and Boutique in Lakeland online. We bought out that store, I think, to my 2 sisters and my 2 daughters and I over the weekend.
And just started a kids boutique as well. So we
beautiful
can
stuff.
Sell you any kind of clothing attire that you like.
Yep. So, whether you want to or not.
The men's store would be next. I need some help.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Talk to Gina. So thank you. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you all so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks for being on, Tyler. It was really great to have you.
Thank you, Tyler. Take care.
That was Tyler Davis sharing his insights on commercial real estate and business development. For more information on Tyler, Saunders, or to learn more about SVN Latus, click the links in the show notes. Thanks for listening to Beyond the Deal.